Christian Auto Repair here. Just want to give you a brief introduction to myself. I'm really a Ford guy, kind of old school. Walk in, I'll show you the different vehicles that I got. This is my 2002 Wrangler, kind of in work, but close to being done. I got a stroker motor in it. It's got cam injectors, pretty much everything on it. 6-inch lift. Decent ride, just a fun Jeep. This is my 66 Mustang. Did this from the ground up. Pretty much this clean all the way underneath the vehicle. This is a 408 stroker. This thing really gets it. We're gonna do part one of the Hyundai engine removal video. Let's see what she looks like. This is our 2011 Hyundai Azera. Got it on Facebook Marketplace. It's got a spun rod bearing, so it's got a heavy knock to it, but car's in really good shape, so we're probably just gonna rebuild the motor and then either keep it or sell it. We'll see what happens. Start by removing these lower panels off the bottom of the car, and then here's what it looks like with the panels removed. Next, remove the battery and these air intake and filter boxes. Next, unplug the mass air sensor, and there's a wire retainer that holds the wire harness to the box itself. As you can see, I try to keep everything that we remove from the vehicle kind of in a general order that we took it off. You'll see there's kind of leaves and mouth stuff here. This car's been sitting for a couple of years. This is what it looks like with the airbox and intake removed. Next, remove upper and lower radiator hoses. Next, disconnect the O2 sensor. Remove these two screws to get the shroud off of the starter motor. And then remove the plugs for the starter motor wires and then the starter motor itself. So I didn't cover this when we first started disconnecting the wire loom, but every plug's different on here. They do that so that you can't connect the wrong one. So on some of these you'll see there's a black plastic deal here. To get this plug undone, you have to take a screwdriver and pry this up, and then you can squeeze the tab to release it here and pull it off. So there's another kind of plug, this one over here. This is a little different. When you see the blue tab on here, you have to pry this plug that way, the little blue thing that way, and that allows you to depress the plug release. There's one of them that has this wire on it, and this one basically you depress it down and then you can pull it down. The other ones are pretty much just the push and release. There isn't really a safety on them. So I wanted to cover that because people get frustrated with these plugs, and that's how you end up breaking the plugs. So just be patient, look how to release it. Follow the wire loom across the motor and just unplug all the electrical connections. Here are some more plugs on the passenger side of the motor. Down here is the AC pump and the alternator plugs. Here are some more plugs on the passenger side towards the front of the motor. This is just showing the location of the intake bolts to get the intake manifold off. And now we're at the point, we got all the plugs and stuff removed. We want to pull this back kind of slowly and gently. You don't want to damage any of your wires or your harness. So we'll move this out of the way. Then our next step is we got to take the intake manifold off. So we've removed all the bolts. There's a bolt back here that you got to remove, and then there's 6 bolts here that you got to remove, and then this comes straight up and out of the car. Put a rag over this fitting and push in the plastic spacer, and that'll depressurize your fuel system. Okay, I got to remove my drive belt. So to do that, you got a tensioner under here. It's a 19mm socket. Just pull on it. There you go. And then take your belt off. AC pump removal is next. There's 4 bolts to take the AC pump off the motor. Okay, got to get the AC pump off, so take 4 bolts off. Then I'm just going to hang it with some baling wire because I don't want to discharge the system. The AC pump's off. I'm just kind of pulling it over here with some baling wire just to keep it out of the way when we yank the motor out. I'm taking the alternator off now, so it's 1 top bolt, 1 bottom bolt. So I'll lift this thing up to get the bottom bolt. Here's a long one. Disconnect the 2 heater hoses up at the firewall from the heater core. That guy. Okay. What I'm doing here is I'm just breaking the seal, the hose to the heater core. You want to be gentle here to not damage the heater core, but just turn gently, and that'll make them real easy to pull off. That's for the O2 sensor. Good. That's not gonna work. I need to get it off this way. The plastic coolant manifold you have to remove from the back of the motor. There's 5 bolts you take out, and then there's that O-ring seal. It's kind of tough to get off, but you'll see. So we gotta, don't forget to take this angle bracket off the bottom here. So this is gonna keep the motor from going up and pulling the axle and the exhaust with it. So I didn't have that loosened up. I wanted to touch base on this real quick. So you can see this carrier bearing. This is attached to your axle shaft. This bolts to the back side of your engine block, between your engine block and the firewall. So it's very difficult to see this. There's 3 bolts here. You take these 3 bolts out, and then there's 2 dowel pins that are in the engine block. So these holes right here go over those dowel pins. So once you get these 3 bolts out, you need to pry this bracket away from your engine block so it gets off of those dowel pins, and then you'll be able to pull your motor out. There's a couple of steel brackets on the motor already, and you can connect your engine hoist to these brackets to lift it out. You're going to want to connect up and then put some tension on the motor. Okay, so you take this cover plate off here, and this will give you access to your torque converter bolts. There's 6 of those. Take those out, and then you take all the bolts out to hold the tranny to the motor. I've got all of mine out except for one in the top, and then there's a motor mount bolt up top I'll show you. Okay. Ouch. Need to remove the radiator overflow tank, the white tank you see there, to get the front engine mount off. With this engine mount removed, it allows us to move the engine towards the passenger side of the vehicle to separate it from the transmission. The blue leveler you see on the end of the engine hoist was a lifesaver. It really helped us to try to jockey this motor out of the engine bay. There's very little room in here. I think these things were probably put in from the bottom at the factory, but as you can see, it does come out. We got to be sure and take the flex plate off before we put it in the engine stand so that we can still get the crankshaft and all that out. That's next. Okay, engine's out on the stand. We're about ready for disassembly of the motor. This will conclude part 1 of our engine removal on the Hyundai Azera. Done for the day.